physician. In this podcast, we'll be discussing about 9 deadly habits which affect your brain and lead to suboptimal performance by the most marvelous thing in this world, which is your brain. As you know, May is a mental health awareness month, and I thought that it will be appropriate to discuss mental health during this month. And we will continue to produce a lot of content which is pertinent for your regarding mental health. Before we understand what habits affect your brain, I think we should try to understand what brain does. Primarily, brain does 7 functions, and those are: number one, motor function. Every muscle fiber in the body is mapped in the brain, and brain very intricately controls the movement. Nothing moves in your body unless some cell in the brain fires and make you move. Second function brain does is processing the sensory information. Brain gets information from external world through our 5 senses and through our internal world through homeostasis, and it intricately gets and information and gets updated on 24-hour basis and create optimal responses based on what is needed. Third is memory. Brain is the storehouse of all your experiences and knowledge. They are stored in the brain in the form of connections. Historically, we divide memory into two kinds: long term memory, which is you remember the things over the period of years, which has been rehearsed and repeated multiple times. And those connections are very dense and they are very permanent. That's why we don't lose long term memory even in advanced stages of Alzheimer and dementia. And second kind of memory is short term memory, which is your working memory, which enables you what to take care of the day-to-day things like what you're going to eat, what you ate, whom did you meet, what somebody told you. All those things are stored in the short-term memory. Those connections are weaker, and when you start losing memory, you have primarily problems with the short-term memory, which we'll discuss as we go along. Fourth function of the brain is emotions. Emotions are your radar. Evolutionary, they are designed to keep you safe, keep you protective, and evolutionary, this was one of nature's best way to protect you and preserve the genetic pool. In the brain, your limbic system, which is your brain centers, they are very intricately involved with connections with all parts of your brain. That's how your emotions are able to hijack your thinking. Because if there is a threat, that is not time to deliberate, that's time to act. That's why brain hijacks that. Evolutionary, when there was importance of emotions, we were living in jungle where the threats were temporary but real and all the time. Now we live in very secure environments. Emotions should have very little value in our day-to-day life, but unfortunately, through different mechanisms, we still stay in emotionally alert stage, leading to a lot of anxiety and depression. Fourth function of your brain is communication. Your brain receives information and has to communicate out with the word, and that is through spoken language, which is your speech, and also through your written language, which is reading and writing. Number next, homeostasis. Your brain maintains functioning of every organ system in the body, and it does a very good job through two systems. through autonomic nervous system and through hormones. Autonomic nervous system is the one sympathetic and parasympathetic. You might have heard the adage fight and flight and freeze response. That is your autonomic nervous system. When you're angry, your sympathetic system is in action. When you are resting, relaxing, digesting, your parasympathetic system is in action. And your hormones, we all are familiar with our hormones, and they are very intricately and very closely controlled by the brain through different mechanisms. Next function of the brain is your abstract thinking and critical thinking. Brain does a good job. What makes us human is ability to get the information from outside world, process it, and consult with the different aspects of your brain like memory, check what kind of responses we have in the past initiated, what were the consequences, and also it checks with the emotional quotient of these actions, what is going to lead to, what will be the consequences, how it will affect the person in question, other person, and the surrounding. So, with this functioning, this abstract thinking or processing of the information is the only unique to human beings. None of the animals can process this information through so many different angles. The ability of brain to process the information not serially like one action leading to another, rather in a parallel processing through multiple ways, looking at different ways we could process, that is only unique to human brain. Even though other animals do have brain, which is pretty much size to brain size to body ratio, they may have a bigger brain, but we have the unique capability to process this information in such a complex way and come up with options to act, not to act, or act different or act at a different time. Overall, your abilities, your brain's ability to pay attention to something, that is your attention. If you don't pay attention to something, that thing is not happening for you. But once you pay attention to something, meaning you bring it to your conscious and aware mind, that is attention. And if you are able to focus that attention for an extended period of time, that is your concentration. When you are paying attention to something and you are concentrating, then you could perceive inside word and outside word. That's your perception. Then you could process this information and come up with practical concepts or imaginary concepts. That is your intuition, imagination, and action. Brain is a very energy hungry organ. 25% of the energy which you consume on day-to-day basis is used by brain. Brain only is about 2 pounds or 2% of your body weight. It's like a jelly or a mush, which is 80% water, 10 to 15 12% is fats, very little protein, trace minerals and vitamins. The ultimate unit of brain is a neuron. Easiest ways to remember or to understand neuron is like a tree, which has a trunk, which is equivalent to axon, and the branches, which are dendrites, and the main body, which is called soma. Brain cells, when they communicate with another brain cells, they do not come in physical touch. Each root, branch, they come in contact with another cell. There is a space between them which we call synaptic cleft, and in that space neurotransmitters are secreted, and those neurotransmitters can make the other cell fire or stop leading to action or no action based on what kind of neurotransmitter which is released. But brain cell requires steady supply of energy. As I said, requires or uses 25% of your total caloric intake. Brain prefers glucose. It can use ketones, but glucose is preferred. And that's where what kind of source of glucose which we get is important. If brain is given too much of high doses of glucose all the time, it becomes insensitive, it gets inflamed, it stops processing the information. That is why highly processed food, simple carbohydrates, brain doesn't like it. For brain to get energy, it likes complex carbohydrates, which are slowly released the glucose into you from your gut, getting assimilated and absorbed, and going to your brain and keep it alive and alert. It is everybody's experience when we drink any kind of sugary drink, we get a buzz, then we get crash. That is what is happening is your brain cell initially get energy, can function, and then it does not get the steady supply and it's not functioning at its peak. The trunk of each neuron, which is axon, is surrounded by a fatty sheath or myelin sheath. That is like a plastic coating around your wire in the house that requires foods which are high in omega fatty acids. It requires large quantity of omega 3 fatty acids. Then your neurotransmitters, basically the precursors for them is the amino acids which comes from the proteins. So what will be the ideal diet for neurotransmitters, your trunk or myelin sheath and the neuron will be the one which is provides steady supply of carbohydrates, quality fats, quality proteins, and trace minerals and vitamins so that every part of the ultimate unit of brain can function and work properly. Then the blood vessels carry the blood, the channels which carry the nutrition from your heart to the brain. If there is any problem with your circulatory system, you will not be able to get enough blood in the brain and you will not be able to function properly. See the now we will discuss the habits. With this background, what I was trying to explain you is what brain does, what is the ultimate unit of brain cell is, then what this brain cell needs. Then let's talk about what happens to the brain as we age. Everybody loses about 10,000 neurons per day. So see, it's made up of 100 billion. Brain has about 100 billion neurons, but it is losing roughly 10,000 neurons every day. So if we cannot replace these neurons, if you do the math, every day our mental capabilities will go down. But nature has always built the redundant system. We used to think brain cells number is fixed, but that concept is completely debunked. We know now that brain has stem cells, and if we do certain good habits, we can stimulate those stem cells so that we could continue to replace the attrition of the brain cells. And the most important stimulus to initiate formation of new brain cells is exercise. Then, so as we age, number of cells are going down. Also, the capacity of each neuron to process the information goes down. Your brain is not able to process the information at the speed it was able to do one time. Then, with chronic medical problems, you will find the circulation or the cerebral circulation decreases and the brain is getting less and less blood, and that will lead to its complications. Due to our personal habits, diet, and disease, there is a lot of inflammatory byproducts which gets accumulated in the brain, leading to brain cell dysfunction, even if the brain is normal. There are certain chemicals or the protein which gets collected in the brain, which are very predominantly being studied in Alzheimer's disease that can lead to brain dysfunction. In nutshell, as we age, we lose brain cells, the blood going to the brain decreases, the function and the processing speed of the brain decreases, and we must do everything in our capacity to reverse that. Let's start with 9 deadly habits which will lead to any of the things so far we have discussed. Number one is diet. Nothing is more toxic to the brain than simple carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates lead to insulin resistance, and this insulin resistance lead to inflammation in the brain, and this inflammation in the brain will lead to brain cell dysfunction. For brain to work efficiently, you must get constant supply of complex carbohydrates so that your body can function properly. So avoid sugary drinks, avoid simple carbohydrates, and adopt a diet which is high in complex carbohydrates so that your brain can get steady supply of glucose. Next, your diet is where the meats which we are eating, they are highly processed. We are not even the right kind of meat. The meat which brain likes, which will be precursors for all the amino acids for your neurotransmitters, will be lean, quality beef, pork, salmon, sardines. Those are the one which will help you to eat, you keep your brain healthy and provides with the raw material. Vitamins and minerals. Nuts, legumes will provide adequate amount of diet which will be providing these essential nutrients so that your brain can work properly and can continue to replenish what it needs. So, number one deadly habit is avoid simple carbohydrates and processed foods. You must take vitamin and mineral supplements. But I prefer that if you change the diet, let's design a diet which will be good for the brain. It will be complex carbohydrates, beans, legumes, salmon, and lean meat, and quality fats, which is high in omega 3 fatty acids. We tend to overemphasize in the regarding diet and we tend to make the things more complicated. I don't believe we need to make it more complicated. We must stick to basic principles, which this kind of a diet, anybody could afford it, and we should stick to that. Second, exercise. As a society, we do not exercise. Exercise, the only stimulus is for your brain's stem cells. It is recommended that you must exercise 30 minutes 5 times a week, preferably 7 days a week. This is very unique and simple concept, but it is tested over and over no matter which organ system or which disease you pick up. Exercise minimum 30 minutes at a moderate speed helps you to preserve function, not only your brain, but every organ in the system. If you are trying to start exercising, see if your schedule permits. Try to adopt a habit of doing exercise in the morning. If you exercise in the morning, you have 300% chances of continue and maintaining the exercise program. And the benefits you will accumulate doing exercise in the morning will keep you fresh and active during whole day. Number next, must stop wasting time and stop listening to news, social media, which will hijack your emotions all the time. Because once you are emotional, your chemistry in the brain changes. And that change in chemistry, as I've indicated before, hijacks your thinking brain, and your brain cells will start dying more. That's why once we live in a doom and gloom world, or everything, if you look at any kind of news channel, the world is going to end in next 2 hours. And most of the people are able to process this out, but there is significant portion of us who are not able to process the information properly, and they do get affected by what's going on in our social world. I'm not saying these things do not have value. I think they do have significant value to keep us informed and safe, but make sure that you don't let them play into your emotions, and you should control your emotional responses and continue to do this part. Next is intellectual stimulation. Your brain cells can survive only if they are used. We know the adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. Brain cells needs to be used. Biggest exercise for the neurons of the brain cells is the mental activities, reading, writing, puzzle solving. That will keep your brain healthy, and you must do that. But if you don't use it, you will definitely lose it. Social interactions. We are social animals, and we must make connection with ourselves and others. We are losing connection with everybody in this world, and we are becoming more and more loner. Next is managing medical conditions. If you do have diabetes, blood pressure, high cholesterol, you must see your doctor regularly, and you must get yourself treated to the target. I believe if you watch your diet, continue doing exercise, manage your emotions, keep yourself motivated, and you also continue to do social connections, that will preserve your brain function. I hope this session was helpful, and we request that if you could subscribe to our channel, Kunless MD, and follow us on the other social media platforms. And we would love to hear what you think about our content. Please comment on it, and I will see you next week in live session. Thank you very much.